Hi there, welcome back to Philcodes. One of my all-time favourite games is Hollow Knight. It's a massive 2D Metroidvania made by an indie team based in Australia. The world of Hollow Knight is filled with unique NPCs, deep intriguing lore and secrets everywhere you look. However, this video is focused mainly on how Hollow Knight keeps you entertained. Also, it's the first video of my new series, Video Game Analysis. Hollow Knight was originally a small game jam made for Ludum Dare. The game was called Hungry Knight. The aim was to scavenge around killing enemies to get food. It was a simple top-down game consisting of the same art style we know today in Hollow Knight. After the jam is when the devs decided to make Hollow Knight a commercial Metroidvania platformer. When making a platformer, you need to make two things perfect: jump height and move speed. Hollow Knight has a jump height the player can vary. If the player holds down the button, you will do a high jump. If you tap the button lightly, you will do a low jump. This feels perfect in the game. You can jump around just as you want to without getting restricted to the same jump heights. If you hold the jump button down for as long as it lets you, you can jump 4 times the height of your player, which is quite high for a platformer. The shortest jump being so small it's almost impossible to tap the button for that short. Anyway, the player movement affects how easy it is to control the character, but not really the fun. So what actually makes Hollow Knight so fun? Feedback in a video game is when the player knows when they are performing an action, and the player gets feedback from the action. For example, if the player jumps, they will get feedback from the jump in many ways. Feedback with animation, sound, and affecting other objects. To make a jump animation good, it needs to start as soon as you press the jump button with no delays. And with sound effects, you need to make sure they are impactful and not annoying. So let's look at this clip on screen. You can hear grunts from your stag in the distance, the noise of leaves rustling beneath your feet, and the sound of when your player lands, a sort of thud. For the visual feedback, we can see when we double jump we have another animation with 2 wings to boost the player upwards. We can see particles of leaves flinging up behind the player and plants disturbed by the player's movement. All of this added up makes moving the Hollow Knight fun. This is the player's attack. We can see when we attack and we can see where we attacked, indicated by a white trail in front of our weapon. The enemy is knocked back slightly, and we can see a vast white spark-like effect. The enemy turns red for a split second, and then we see big orange particles violently coming out the enemy. When we finish the enemy off, the same thing happens but with more particles. And after we finish it off, its corpse is left lying on the ground, which gives a sense of impact in the world of Hollow Knight, something that can't be undone. The attack can be varied by charms, which is something we'll go into later. With charms, you can make your attacks faster, you can make them deal more damage, and you can make the attack have a bigger range. This varies the attack up, adding to the fun. Charms are Hollow Knight's form of upgrades, giving the player an option to make their character more powerful, but still being able to change their power-ups later on. To equip charms, you need charm notches, which can be acquired from doing quests or exploring the map. Each charm has an amount of notches they use. If you have enough notches, you can equip another charm. However, if you don't, you can still equip the charm, but at the cost of taking double damage. There are also some charms that react to each other, making finding more charms even more exciting. There are such a large variety of charms, so they are not too rare, but that doesn't take away of the excitement of finding the new charm. In Hollow Knight there are a massive 150 enemies, and 30 of them are bosses. All enemies act in their own way, making each encounter fun and interesting. Something I found that was really cool when playing Hollow Knight was almost all of the enemies have their own lore. There are even whole YouTube channels just focused on the lore of Hollow Knight. It's surprisingly interesting. The game makes you really curious about these enemies due to NPCs and cutscenes. Each character has their own personality and it gets you really invested in the world of Hollow Knight. Something I think makes Hollow Knight really fun is that to beat the game you don't need to complete much of the game. It's your choice how much of the game you beat before finishing it. You don't need to beat many bosses at all to beat the game. About half of them are optional boss fights. Although Hollow Knight is a challenging game and a lot of the bosses give you upgrades, so unless you're pro it's a good idea to beat some of these bosses. Each boss is challenging in its own way. Some are difficult because the boss deals double damage to you, others because they're moving all over the place so they are hard to hit. All of the bosses are balanced, some are just difficult. Something I find amazing about Hollow Knight is its uniqueness. The sprites are hand-drawn and scanned in with a computer. It's unlike any other game. Every single enemy and NPC is so well made. They all have personality and react to things you do in the game world. Hollow Knight is one of the biggest games in this genre. I have a 45-hour save with 112% completion. I'm an average player, so 45 hours for a fully completed save is very long compared to some other games like Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which has about 20 hours worth of content. Also, Hollow Knight has 4 free DLCs, which add quite a lot more content. There is also another game named Silksong, which is just around the corner. You play as a character you meet called Hornet. So the main things that make Hollow Knight fun are the controls, and the impact of the controls, the vast amount of enemies and bosses, how different each enemy feels to fight. Each of the bosses are a fun, balanced experience. The player attack, NPCs, and the ore smart. So I think there is one final thing that makes Hollow Knight so fun, which is challenge. Hollow Knight is a really difficult experience. The bosses take some practice to beat, but the feeling you get when you beat a really difficult boss is priceless. The difficulty of Hollow Knight doesn't come from the boss fights only, but there is normally a small challenge you have to beat before getting a new charm or to rescue a friendly NPC. It's not just the challenge that makes it fun, but also the reward. Even if the reward is just a small amount of coins, you feel like you've beaten something, and it's great. So the final thing we are going to look at are the 4 free DLCs, but only look at the 2 biggest ones, which are the Godmaster DLC and Grim Troop. Both of these DLCs are free, which is a nice touch. The Grim Troop adds 2 new boss fights, a new charm and lore. The charm is the main part of the DLC. You have to search for red flames to level up the charm. When you have collected 3 flames, you go back to Grim, which is the boss, and he sets you 3 more flames to find. Once you have done that, you go into the first boss fight versus Grim. Once you win, you have to find 3 more flames, and then you fight one of the hardest bosses in the game, called Nightmare King Grim. The final DLC is the hardest in the game. You go into the new land called Godhome, and you have to battle pantheons, which get increasingly hard. The first pantheon, you have to beat some of the easiest bosses without dying. They get increasingly hard until the final one, where you have to beat every single boss in the game without dying. Some of the bosses are even buffed in the pantheon. Beating this extreme challenge, you get a Steam achievement and a cutscene. Hollow Knight is a wonderful game, and if you haven't yet played it, you are massively missing out. Trust me, it's £11 on Steam and you won't regret playing it. So this video is quite different to my other videos. Let me know in the comments if you like this style of video and if you would like to see more videos about video game analysis. Also, let me know what other games you would like me to analyse. I have a Discord server where you can talk to me about game dev and other things. Make sure you like and subscribe and check out this video in the top right. See you in the next one. Bye.